Today we are going to discuss about the root scope and scope in the widget or in service portal. So just to go for the introduction about that, we have one block. Uh, we'll just see what is the scope, root scope and scope here. So like what is AngularJS? It's a single page application. Okay, so without refresh we'll get updated data, we can send the data to database, that kind of stuff we can do using AngularJS. So in AngularJS we have two scopes, one is root scope and we have the scope. So root scope is, you can say, parent scope of every scope, you can say, and scope is nothing but the local variable, you can say. Okay, so in Servicenow, in service portal we have one page and there are different widgets we have, right? So one page is nothing but it will act as a, you can say, one AngularJS application will have one root scope, and every widget on that page contains a scope. Every widget having a different scope. So scope is a nothing but the local variable for a widget, and root scope is nothing but, you can say, global variable, or you can say parent of all the scope. So root scope is created with ng app directive generally. So ng app, for every page there will be one ng app. Okay, and you can say how we can declare that variable using dollar root scope dot variable name. Okay, how we can use in HTML, this is something we are going to see the one example. And the scope is nothing but, you can say, ng controller directive, it will create with the ng controller. So every widget has a different ng controller. So in this way, like every widget has a different scope. If they are on the same page, they can share a root scope variable. So if you want to, so what we will do, like we'll create two widgets, okay, on the same one page. We'll declare the root scope in one widget, and we can access that, you can say, variable in a different widget. So in that case, you will come to know how we can declare the root scope and how we can use in another widget. Okay. So through the root scope, you can share the variables, as well as you can share the data using broadcast and emit functions. Those are the functions of, you can say, scope variable. This is object actually. Okay. So currently we just will see what is the root scope, how we can pass the data, how we can access the data of which we have defined in the root scope, how we can access the scope variable. And after that, in the next videos, we will see how we can use the broadcast and the emit functionality. Okay, so first I will go and I will create one page. Okay, and in that page then we'll add two widgets. So let's go for the pages. So new page, like title, scope, example, id, I will write scope. Just I will save this. After that, we need to create two widgets and we'll put in that page. So let's go for the widgets. So we'll create scope one widget. I will save this and I will create another widget, say scope two widget. Scope two. Okay. So we have two widgets and both the widgets will store into, you can say, will not store, like will show on one page, that is scope underscore example. Okay, so let's go. Like here we need to write some code, right? So what we'll write, first I will write in scope one, just I will put some HTML content here. So just I will write here in D, or I can write in H1. I will write scope 1 widget, and in this just I will define one scope. You can say scope variable. Okay, how to define a scope variable we can access in client controller. So generally I will use in this syntax. Okay, so I will write dollar. So this is how we need to just take this object in a function dollar root scope. So this is how we can input the library, and here we can use, if we want to use SP model, SP utils, we need to include this library in a parameter, then we can use in a client controller. So here I will define a scope variable. So suppose like I want to define a local variable, that is the scope only. So what I will write in the scope variable, okay, dollar scope dot some data. So I will write first underscore name equal to, I just write service now. Okay, so this is I have defined here, and after that I'm not doing anything. So this is the scope here. If I want to access this scope variable in, suppose in the div, so just I need to use, it's a local variable, so we'll not use the scope again, just will use a variable name. So our variable name is first underscore name. Okay, and just save this. So this is widget, just see how it will work. Okay, now this is the first widget, and now we have another widget, that is the scope 2. In this scope 2 I will do the same, but instead of the first name I will use a root scope. We'll declare here the root scope variable. Okay, so the root scope variable, here I can use a second name. Okay, so write dollar root scope dollar scope. Okay, so here in div I will just write first underscore name, and here I will declare one function with root scope. You can set not a function, I would say like variable, root scope dot second name equal to catalog system. So this is root scope second name. Okay, and here also I can use scope dollar scope dot, you can say address. That's right, some random idea. So here if I will put the first name as well, then you can say address. This is local variable, right, of widget 2, and this is the local variable of widget 1. Here also we can write the same. Okay, let's save this. I will save this as well. And third one is right, we need to declare the root scope variable, so second name. So how to access the second name? Okay, here I can write div, and here I can do root scope variable. So how to access in HTML? You can use root dot that variable name. So it's what, second name. So we need to use root dot second name, and I will use the same here as well. Just save this. Okay, so here we need to use which is dollar root. Okay, this is how we can get the root scope variable name. So let's access this two widgets in this page. I will go to designer mode, add these two widgets. So I'll go container with this, go first scope here, second scope here. Okay, so widget one, so we are getting a, you can say, root scope variable. So I think we have, okay, one widget, why one widget only? Mm, scope 2, okay, I need to change the name. This is first, this is second. So let's save this, reload the form. From the first we will get this local variable, in the second we are getting this local variable. Okay, we can't access the other local variables in one of the widgets. So just I want to show you one thing. Root scope variable I have declared, you can say, in the second. So if I remove the second, what will happen? Just see that. Let's delete this, delete the form. So you can see we don't have the root scope variable now, right? Suppose in this page does not contains this widget, and in this widget we are actually defining the root scope, right? So if I put second scope widget, so you can see now I'm getting the catalog system. This is how we can declare a root scope variable, a variable of a root scope and a variable of a scope. Scope is a local, root scope is, you can say, parent of all the scopes. So if you see the block, here is one example I have given that. You can try that, but every service portal is considered as one AngularJS application. So root scope of every page will be the one, okay? And the scope is defined according to your widgets. If you are using nested widgets, okay, how to pass data, you can use a root scope, okay? But if you declare a root scope, that can be, you can say, used in every widget. If you want to restrict, okay, only 2 3 widgets only they can read that data, so what you need to do, you need to use a broadcast or emit kind of stuff. Okay, how you are defining the widgets, if it is nested widget, okay, how, so according to that we need to use a broadcast and you can say emit. So that we will see in the next videos, okay? But this is only for, you can say, root scope, and you can say a local scope in a widget. Okay, thank you.